Hey y'all, I'm Legit Sarah Jane, host of Hunting Holiness, and today I have something special for you. Today is such an incredibly beautiful day here in North Alabama. And as I was driving home from church, I wanted to share a little story with you and step you into ways that you can focus on gratitude this week. Now, that might sound like something that's maybe oversimplified or whatever, but the truth is it's really hard to sit in gratitude when things are tough. And it's actually really hard to sit in gratitude throughout the whole day when things are good. So we're going to dig into that. But I want to start by telling you about this church situation. For those of you who have been following for a while, you know that I stepped out of a pretty messy corporate church environment. This started as a smaller church, became a mega church, and the pastor and the leadership went off the rails to the point that 5 pastors left and over 500 families have also left this church. And I left about a year before everybody else did. I saw the signs coming. I sat down with leadership on multiple occasions and said, this can't continue. Let me step in and be supportive and help everybody navigate through this and yada, yada. And the truth is they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to be accountable for the false teaching and the mismanagement of finances and some of the other stuff that was going on. And so as that grace was lifted, I felt the Lord calling me out of that. Fast forward, we have now been in North Alabama for almost a year and we love it here. But one of the things that I've felt like was missing was community. Before we moved here, I started applying for jobs. I applied for a job to clean the tables and say hi to people at Chick-fil-A. I applied for jobs within my industry and tons of other opportunities. And the Lord led me to this really cool company that I do care so much about, where we do corporate leadership training. And while we're not faith forward, faith is where we came from, and everyone in our organization has a strong faith. We have a prayer time together. And so I'm not ready to leave that role. However, I have been missing community because the job that I took, thinking that it was based here in North Alabama, is actually remote. So I work from home the majority of the time, unless we have a local training. I've traveled some for this company, but the truth is I'm really missing some of the pieces that I crave. And that is community with like-valued people. While I have that in the team that I work with, and we talk about God a lot, and we are prayerful, and we can absolutely openly talk about that stuff, the people that I connect with and my team are not local. And I really, really want more like-valued friends to do life with, not just to connect with corporately, like for work, but, to just have. And I think we all crave that because we were created to live in community. Right after God created Adam, he created Eve so he wouldn't be alone. Even though he had the Lord, the Lord knew that we needed each other. And so I have been seeking out opportunities to build more community here with Hunting Holiness, right? We talk a lot about how this is a space for women who are not just like valued, but are like hobbied. So shooting sports, hunting, fishing, the outdoors. And that has been amazing. And it's awesome because I'm meeting women from all over the country. However, I still need local friends. And so I have been praying for the Lord to reveal to me where I should find that community. And coming from so much what we call church hurt, where the church let me down, the people of the church let me down in some pretty substantial ways, he finally released me from that and gave me opportunity to step back into a church building. And so I am. I just came from church this morning. I've been going to this church off and on for a few months. And the way that God led me to this church actually started when Bear and I first came to North Alabama for his very first personal, like in-person interview for the company he works for. And I saw this billboard and it said, church for people who don't think church is for them. And I was like, if I'm going to go to church, that's the one I'm going to try. Because I want something different than the churches I grew up in, the church that I just left, the Christian school background that I have. I wanted something different. And I knew that it needed to be a really small community. I knew that it needed to be extremely accurate with teaching that, no ma'am, that's my water bottle. She loves water bottles. But it needed to be really, really accurate. And that meant that the pastor needed to be not just in the word, but doing life with God, not just stepping into a role and having a title, but living out what that calling looks like biblically. And here in America, we have a lot of church pastors who are super gifted either at teaching or at shepherding and like leading people, but it's hard to find both. And this church has both. The things that I love most about this church is that the pastor doesn't call himself Pastor Tim. He's just Tim. He happens to be the executive pastor and the lead pastor, but he doesn't see himself in a prideful manner. He actually is extremely humble, and today even stood on stage and was like, I struggle. Like, I am a human being. You're not going to find a lot of pastors who are willing to be bold about their faith by sharing the fact that they have had to live through a lot of the stuff, a lot of the heavy stuff, the problems, the issues. And I really appreciate his humility. I also really appreciate that it's not just him giving sermons. It's not one guy standing on a stage preaching at everyone else and telling everyone else how to live. He's actually leading a Bible study. We're learning together. And he often will have other people from within the church come and give the sermon that week, not so he can go on vacation, but so that he can sit in the chairs, but like in the pews with us and learn as well. And that's something that's super meaningful to me, because when I am examining if a church is the right fit, it needs to be a lot more like the Acts 2 church. Here in America, we do not have a lot of big churches or corporate churches that act biblically like the original church, like the original bride of Christ. And so this church, not just being small and not just having a really strong pastoral leadership, but also the way that they bring in the Trinity, the way that the fellowship is, the way that the community is working together, and the way that the teaching is not just biblically aligned and isn't just what I call, 3 verses in a prayer where the pastor picks a topic and says, I'm going to talk about this week, and then Googles 3 verses that make them sound like they're right. But we actually study chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and dig into the life application that the Lord is leading us into at that moment. And so I know we don't talk about churches here a lot, but I did want to give you some feedback on where I am and in my journey, and talk a lot with you for the last 9 minutes and 6 seconds about how I feel in this moment and how I have felt my whole life. That church is an important part of our growth as people and as our growth spiritually and relationally with the Lord, and how we work together and work alongside each other matters. We are not supposed to be siloed off, working in a vacuum, living in a vacuum, only focused on the people who live in our house or work in our corporation or sit in our chairs, the same row, on Sunday mornings. Where I am actually sitting down with the pastoral team this week is to get some clarity on how this church functions behind the scenes. I'm loving what I'm seeing out front, and I have some questions. How does the elder board work? Right? Are there people holding the pastoral team accountable to make sure that they stay on track when their humanity slips in and they are tempted to go off track? Also, what is the financial status, and are they open to discussing that with the members of the church? If we're tithing to a church, if we're supporting that ministry, and we are showing up with either our finances or our time or sharing our talents, we should have some clarity on where the funds are being spent. And some of that really comes from my church hurt from past churches where there wasn't transparency about the financial situation, and the pastor or pastors were spending church money on personal things like fancy houses and a lifestyle that does not align with the fact that other people are trusting you with these funds. So here's the point to that. Just because you're in ministry does not mean that you need to be poor. But if other people are giving you their money and they think it's going to certain things, it should be going to those things, not to making sure that you have a big fancy house on the water that's unnecessarily large for your family size and that isn't used for gathering people together, but is a private place that only your family enjoys. I do think that if you are in a leadership role in a church, that you should open your home to other people, have people over for dinner, have discussions on your couch that wouldn't happen in a church building, that wouldn't happen in the 10 minutes between services on Sunday. The other thing is, I want to know how they deal with certain issues, specifically in their young adults programs. For me, that's where the Lord has gifted me and where my heart is. And you all know I run Project Heaven Ministry, which is specifically for young adults. And the goal is to make sure that they are empowered and equipped to step out into wherever and whatever roles that the Lord takes them to and to fulfill the Great Commission. She has another water bottle. Hey, Cordelia, can you take that anywhere else and go play? Thanks, baby. Super annoying. Hey, Pookie, no. So I just wanted to share with you that before I step into a church, before I call it my church home, I do have some things I need to clarify. And the reason for that is because I've been in churches where these mistakes were made and where people were not good stewards financially or relationally, where they would actually preach from the pulpit and say, I really don't like people, so I'm going to come up here and teach for you, but I'm not comfortable coming down and shaking your hand. What? Huh? No. That's not leadership, okay? If you ever had a boss who sat in their office and had the door closed all the time and you couldn't communicate with and you couldn't be honest with and you couldn't come to when you were either struggling or needing support, bro, okay, enough with the water bottle. If you had a boss like that, you never felt comfortable. I know I never did. If they just came to meetings, dictated how we should be doing things and the way that the company should be going and growing, and then just disappeared, why would you want to work for someone like that? How is that different from church situations where our pastoral leadership doesn't want to shake our hand or know us personally, right? That's weird. It never felt right. So just know that I have not gotten clarity on whether or not there is a specific kind of role for me at this church, but I have been called to this church. It is something I'm excited about, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the Lord shows up inside corporate church as well as in the woods, because we are getting into hunting season. Yay! Dove season opened yesterday here in North Alabama, and that kicks off our year of hunting various game. And I could not be more excited for everything that's coming from that. I will tell you, it is stunningly beautiful here right now, and I will probably sit outside the entire day. I will probably just sit here and soak it all in because it has been a warm summer. It has been hot, and right now it's about 74 degrees. It's breezy. There's already leaves changing. There's already leaves falling, and I am just so excited to see what this season, hunting season, season of life, and season of personal growth has for me. Because I know God's got something huge coming, and I am just so excited to see what it is. So thank you guys so much for hearing me out on this little mini episode. And let's talk about gratitude. Okay. I promised you I would talk to you about gratitude. And the reason for that is because right now I am so grateful for three things. The first one is that I have fear of the Lord. And growing up, I thought that meant that I was supposed to be afraid of God and afraid that he would smite me or rain down fire and brimstone. And now that I fully understand fear of God and I fully have lived through what it looks like to not ask him before I take a step, to not ask him before we make a move, to not ask him before we make a purchase or a decision in our relationship. I know how important it is because I've lived without it. And now I will not make a decision without God. I mean, sometimes it's so big, right? Should we move to Alabama? Should we leave our friends and our family and our community and my ministry and our jobs behind and move to a completely new state where we know no one? Should I take the job that I have now? Should my husband welcome the opportunity for the promotion or the shift change that's been offered to him? Should we get another dog? Should we schedule this hunt trip? Should we buy our 8th vehicle in 365 days? Y'all, I cannot tell you how over it I am with having to replace vehicles because of accidents and literally engines blowing up on multiple occasions and all of this stuff. It has been so annoying. When you're young, you're like, I want to buy a car. And then you buy cars as an adult and you're like, I don't want to sit there for 7 hours. It's not fun. It's not exciting. And it's big decisions. So again, Bear and I have made mistakes by not asking, but we've also learned how important it is to ask, which is why I'm telling you about this church situation, because I am so grateful not only for the fear of the Lord, but that he speaks to me and gives me clarity, because he's the one who gave me clarity of stepping back into this church. He's the one who told me where he wanted me to be and that this was the place that he wanted me to show up. God gave me confirmation, which means he repeated himself to me. I think in the past I've been a poor listener, and so he now repeats himself to me 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. The first time I'm like, is that you? I'm going to test this spirit. But now when I hear the second or the third time, or he's repeating himself over and over by bringing up conversations with totally different people that have no reason to be talking about the same thing, I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I hear you. I hear you. But then he also gave me confirmation by literally aligning what he was showing me in the word with what the sermon was last week. The sermon was exactly, almost word for word, what God had shown me 6 weeks ago when he took me to a very obscure, often not taught about book of the Bible, which is Nehemiah. And that book specifically is about community, working alongside each other, coming together to fight against the powers of evil. And if you haven't read it and you haven't seen my episode on that, go back. I have an episode on Nehemiah 3, and it's just so cool to me that not just, I happen to just have studied this, so it's fresh in my mind. And now the 1 week that the Lord takes me back to corporate church, the pastor's talking about the same thing. The fact that the study, the actual words that I learned from the Holy Spirit during that study, and then were repeated to me in this church service, is about the need for community, is the need to be around like-valued believers and families and making friends and building relationships. It's just so much confirmation that I'm going on the same path that he has me on, and that I'm going in the right direction. So I just want to encourage you, because I know a lot of our viewers and a lot of our audience are women who have struggled with church hurt, who have struggled with religion, which, y'all, religion is very different from relationship with God. Religion is how man interprets the rituals and the daily actions and the way that we pray and the things that we do to prove to God, or sometimes a lot more often here in American Western church, to prove to other people that we're good Christians. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with having religious foundations and acting out those religious beliefs, as long as the heart posture is right. If you are doing it for other people to think you're a good Christian, it's a sin. It's wrong. Your intention is wrong. If you are doing it because you think that it's going to buy you some good credit with the Lord, again, sin, wrong. Faith without works is dead. Yes, but those works need to come from a foundation of faith. We need to be doing those things because the Holy Spirit has told us that this is something that the Lord is calling us to, or that has given us an opportunity for. And then we need to be doing it because we know that it is going to glorify God, not us. We got to stop checking the Sunday box and say, oh, it's Sunday, everybody get dressed, we're going to church, because if we don't show up, people are going to wonder where we are. If we don't show up, people are going to think something's wrong in our marriage. If we don't show up, people are going to think we don't have a good faith. And especially with hunting season coming and most of us having weekday jobs, the weekends get hard to show up for church. But that doesn't mean you can't still have a very strong, meaningful conversation with the Lord. And that's what Hunting Holiness is about, is that when you're in that deer stand, when you're walking that field, hunting your upland birds, when you're sitting in a duck blind, wherever you are on your hunt, you can and should be in gratitude, not just for the opportunity that you have, not just because you know gun safety and you're going to face your muzzle in the right direction, not just because the harvest will be plentiful if the Lord has game for you to harvest, but for the beauty, for opportunity to quiet your life, to quiet your mind, to quiet the busyness of what's going on. Girlfriend, stop. Puppies, man. She wants this water bottle so bad. But to actually give yourself time to truly connect with the Lord, to truly sit down with him and be like, God, one, what do you want from this hunt? Are you going to show me your glory, or are you going to show me your glory and provide a harvest, right? Not every hunt ends in a harvest, and that's okay. The moments that we share, listening to the wind, watching the light trickle through the trees, which is my absolute favorite, being in his creation, breathing fresh air and getting oxygen that hasn't come through an AC or heater system, being away from the busyness of life gives us opportunity to have better conversations than we would have if we had all those distractions. So the third thing that I'm super grateful for is not just fear of the Lord, asking him, should I or should I not do this thing? Two, him actually talking to me, giving me clarity and confirmation that what he's told me is the right direction. But three, that he's taught me how to be grateful. Grateful not just for every breath that I take that speaks his name, Yahweh, but that the sun is shining, or that it's raining, that he has given me clothes to keep me warm in those winter hunts, to keep me cool on those summer hunts, to provide opportunity to breathe that air, to get away from the stuff, the life, the world, and actually get to hang out with him. And that he's shown me that there are other women like me who see God, who know God, and who connect with God just as much, if not more, sitting in a blind, walking a field, going to to shoot some clays, just genuinely being out of the world and into his presence in nature. If you have any questions about what it's like to transition back into church after having about 2 years outside of corporate church, if you have any questions about what kind of questions you should be asking your pastoral leadership to vet them, to make sure that they're on the right track and they're leading you correctly, or if you have questions about what kind of opportunities you can take advantage of when you're not in corporate church and instead you are in the woods, on a boat, breathing the air. Gosh, why am I getting choked up? I just love the way the Lord shows up, the opportunities that he gives us for exactly what we need in that time. And he knows right now that I don't just need quiet time in the woods, but I need a balance of community, of like-valued believers where I can grow my spiritual gifts, my natural abilities, and my relationship with him by working not independently, but interdependently with other people that I can grow alongside, that I can learn from, and that I can pour into with my stories, with my wisdom that he's taught me over the years, and not just be a receiver of what other people have to offer, but also share in giving back to that community the same way a family works, where we all bring something of value to offer to the other people in the moments they need it. Gosh, he is so good, and he knows me so well. I hope that you take this opportunity to talk to him about the plans that you have for your hunting season, the plans that you have for whether or not it's time to step back into a corporate church or to leave a corporate church, and what opportunities the Lord has for you to learn, grow, and develop not just your natural skills here on earth, but those spiritual gifts that he has given you specifically for you to work alongside the people who have the other fivefold gifts so that you can really strongly move in the spirit for his glory, not because you're supposed to, not because of obligation, but genuinely because he's calling you to it. He's making a way, and because you genuinely want to honor him by stepping into whatever opportunities he has for you during this season. Okay. Love you guys. Bye.